When I was in Florida, jogging down the beach, and I said this couple was just cooking breakfast on the ocean, and I just had this feeling that I could go home, sell everything, and
that was like January of 2021.
Just passed an RV parked on the ocean, cooking breakfast. It smelled like applewood bacon. I'm just gonna go home, sell everything I got. I could live a whole life in probably a year in the sense of experiences and taking in new places, vibing. Goals, baby, goals. I'd obviously looked into the lifestyle for a while, and I think more fantasized about it, never thought it was ever a possibility. And then you and I met. We did our trip in Moab, where we car camped and like looked around at our surroundings, and for the first time we're like, oh my god, we were cooking our own meals. We'd get back there, like crack a beer and just be sitting there taking in the sunset. Like, this is insane. And it was at that moment where I was like, I don't know if it's a Sprinter van. And I mean, I still had my house at that point where I guess we didn't think we were gonna go all in, but we're like, this is insane. And now here we are, what, a year and a half later?
No.
Not even?
Literally a year and like 2 weeks. We came home from Yellowstone, and probably 10 days later, maybe, you're like,
oh shit, I wasn't filming that whole time. I'm just kidding. I got you.
Seriously, I'm glad I didn't say something meaner.
Keep going.
Probably 10 days after we come home from Yellowstone, you're like, oh, I'm going to the cities to look at this van. Look. And then
was that the
3
first
hours later or 2 days later, yeah, you're like, oh, I won it. Oops.
And we didn't know at that point if it even ran.
Right.
Because when I went there to look at it, the hood was jammed shut from the damage. And
I'm telling my parents, like, oh, Nate bought this van. Hope it works.
Well, at that point, like, we were like, I pretty much said, you know, I don't even know if this thing's gonna run. If it doesn't run, like an engine, $7,500 without the labor. You got rid of your apartment. You put in your notice and are done with your job. I sold my house. We literally, between the two of us, besides going back to family, like, we have nowhere to go in the best way possible. We have nothing holding us back. And I would say in the month we've been doing this, it's been absolutely insane. Like, you think about just the amount of people we have met and shared 5 hours of conversation with that we didn't know up until that day. First night we stayed in a Walmart.
Yeah.
So first night in the middle of nowhere, like, you know, remote camping. And so we get out, or I get out with Zeke, and I'm like over there walking him, and then I see a person get out of the truck. They have a dog as well. And then it's a female, and she comes up. She's like, hey, how's it going? I explained to her that we're just starting off on our venture on van life, and she's like, that's so cool. I've done a lot of traveling. Like, I'd love to do van life at some point, just haven't really done it yet. We start talking about van life, and she's like, you guys are like gonna seriously, like, you don't even know what you're in for. You're gonna meet like some of the most amazing people, because people are like their most genuine, raw version of themselves. Like, they have nothing to hide. It's, everyone has a general understanding of where they're like, I really don't care what this person thinks of me or what image I should try and portray to them, because at the end of the day tomorrow, like, we're gonna go our separate ways, or if we dig each other and we're in the same area, great. If not, we're gonna move on. And like, I think we both just kind of like, what, looked at each other like, holy cow, like,
really
that's
real thing.
absolutely.
On the second night of our venture. It's been an 11 out of 10.
An 11 out of 10, but it has exceeded my expectations in a month of what I thought I would gain from this in a year. In the sense of like what I've learned and the people we've met, the stories we've heard. And like even us as like a couple and as a relationship, I mean, hell, we live in 70 square feet together. We're a long distance relationship. And then I would say towards the last like 2 or 3 months, it was crunch time where I was working on the van, you were at home working, and there was multiple weekends where we'd be like, oh, it's not gonna work this weekend, like we'll have to wait until next. And like just jumping in head first at this point, like live in a van now, 70 square feet together. We're gonna sleep in sometimes Walmarts and Loves and in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, and have Border Patrol stop us and then telling us that they just caught 8 illegals there on Tuesday, and it was what, Thursday?
Right.
Okay, signing off. I'm gonna set the camera down for now.
Bye.
Snippets later. The third night that Rachel and I were camping in Sedona, this was in one of our previous videos, we met these 2 guys that were camping next to us and hung out with them all night, and then the next morning went on a hike before they had to leave, and we exchanged information with each other. I got Connor's number, and it was one of those things, you don't know if you're ever going to meet up with this person ever again or if your paths will cross, but we hung out enough that we exchanged numbers. So it was probably maybe 4 days later, Rachel and I were still in the Sedona Flagstaff area, and he had texted us and said, hey, I don't know what you guys are up to tonight and tomorrow, but I'm coming up there with my girlfriend and some friends, and we're going to do some rock climbing. Rachel and I were like, oh my God, what are the odds? Like, we're still here. So we said, no problem, we'll grab a campsite. That way there's a free spot reserved for you guys. They ended up showing up at like 10:30. We hung out till like 3:30 in the morning. It felt like we had known these guys, like even his friends and his girlfriend, our whole lives. It was so great. It was like our first social dynamic since hitting the road. And then we went rock climbing with them the next day. They had all the tools, all the gear, the knowledge, the patience to show Rachel and I something we thought we'd never do. We had no real desire to go rock climbing. And it was just incredible. We hung out all day, and then we went to a brewery, got some pizza, and we still stay in touch to this day. And just so cool.